Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Today we're talking about a team that has an interesting future in the Sacramento Kings. They have a player that I really like, one of my favorite young players in the entire NBA, De'Aaron Fox. I think that he is a very good building cornerstone for them that they can build their team around, and I'm excited to see what they do to surround him with a supporting cast that will be able to make the playoffs. It all starts with the coach with this team for me. Their coach is Luke Walton, and they had Dave Yeager as their coach, not last season, but 2 seasons ago. And Yeager did a fantastic job making them one of the fastest teams in the league. I think they were the fastest team in the league. They were the most entertaining, one of the most entertaining teams to watch in the entire league, with De'Aaron being able to utilize his speed as a full asset and one of the best offensive weapons that they had. Buddy Hield was able to use his skill set as a shooter. Marvin Bagley was able to play in that fast-paced offense. Bielitsa was able to be a great playmaker. Bogdanovich was able to hit shots. It was just a really nice system for their young team to play into. And because him and Dave Yeager and Vlade Divac, the former general manager of this team, couldn't come to terms on a contract, Yeager was fired. This year they brought in Luke Walton, and he completely overthrew the system. This team no longer plays fast, and they got a lot worse because of the change in systems. So I do not think that Luke Walton is a good coach, and I think that he should be fired. That looks unlikely because he's only had 1 season of experience coaching this team, and they likely wouldn't want to move on from him after just that 1 year. However, I do not think that he is one of the 30 best coaches in the world, and this is not a job that he should have. This team just had so much potential going into this year, and they threw it all away when they hired Luke Walton. If they could fire him and sign Mike D'Antoni to be the coach of this team, they'd immediately become a playoff contender in my eyes. Due to the fast-paced tempo that he is known to coach, the pace and space, and with a guy like De'Aaron Fox, the 7 seconds or less offense would be so incredibly interesting and so exciting. But it looks like we're going to be stuck with Luke Walton as the coach of this team for the foreseeable future. They can bolster their supporting cast, though, in the draft. They have the 12th pick, and there's some interesting options for them with this particular selection. My first choice for them, obviously, your first choice would be LaMelo Ball or Anthony Edwards, because those are the two most talented guys in the draft. Guys like Onyeka Okongwu, James Wiseman, those guys aren't going to make it down here to the 12th pick. There's a few others that I didn't name, but there's no chance. So when I'm talking about this draft pick for the Kings, I'm talking about people that they realistically could have in their range during the draft. And my first pick for them would be Devin Vassell. I think that Vassell would fit in perfectly as a wing player on this roster. The wing position is something that they are lacking quite a bit in, especially if they are to trade Buddy Hield, which appears to be a likely scenario this offseason. So Devin Vassell could come in, play that shooting role, bring some good defense to this team, and be a nice addition for them. Sadiq Bey is a similar player to Devin Vassell, and I really like his ability as a playmaker, and that's really an advantage he has over Vassell. However, he's not as good of a shooter, I guess you could make the debate that he's a better defender than Vassell. So those are my two favorite guys for this team to add, in Devin Vassell and Sadiq Bey. However, if they are not available or they don't like those guys, Isaac Okoro is another fine option. I don't like Okoro as much as the other two due to his inability as a shooter. However, Okoro is a better driver and a better playmaker than Bey and Vassell. So he also likely has a higher ceiling due to his ability as a playmaker and driver, slasher type player. But the shooting just makes me really nervous, and I don't think that he reaches that ceiling. But if they think that they can do something to improve his shot mechanics, then he would be an excellent draft pick for them, and a guy that could eventually be a star-level player for them alongside De'Aaron Fox. If they're not taking one of those three players, I think they should either trade up or trade down. Trading up, they could move up to take one of those three if they move up to the 8 to 10 range. Otherwise, they could move up into the top 5 to draft someone to be a back or a front court partner of the future for Marvin Bagley, someone like James Wiseman or Onyeka Okongwu. I would lean toward Wiseman if I were the Kings, just because of Bagley's ability to be a mobile four who can play on the perimeter a little bit and also guard fours. Wiseman could become a really great defensive anchor for this team and probably be an upgrade from Rashawn Holmes from day one. Holmes is a really, really solid role player, maybe even a great role player, but he's not. I don't know if he is the starting center of the future for this team, and I think if he's a backup center, then you're really well situated at that backup center position. They could also trade down, which I think is the more likely scenario, and get something like maybe the Celtics want to move up here and they give up the 14th and 30th picks to move up to 12, or maybe the Mavericks want to move up in this draft and they give up something like Jalen Brunson in the 18th pick to move up to 12. Those are just some hypotheticals that I thought of. I'm not sure that it'll happen, but I do think that trading down is an optimal idea for this team if they're not able to get Vassell, Bay, or Okoro. They also have the 35th and 43rd picks. With that 35th pick, I really think that they should be targeting the wing position because this is really a sweet spot to grab some wings in this draft. Guys like Robert Woodard, Josh Green, Elijah Hughes, Cassius Stanley, all could potentially be available in this area. I have heard some rumblings from a lot of the writers that I read and the podcasters that I listen to, that these guys are moving up draft boards and could potentially be going in the first round. However, if they don't, they could be very nice options for the Kings with the 35th pick. Other options could be a big guy like Zeke Naji or Daniel Oturu, or a point guard like Sam Merrill or Cassius Winston. With the 43rd pick, guys like Sam Merrill, Skylar Mays, Emmanuel Quickley, Paul Reed, all could be some excellent options for them as guys that I personally believe will end up being role players in the NBA, and that's really what you're just looking for with these second-round pick, guys that can be rotational players. In terms of trades, I think a Buddy Hield trade is very likely. Obviously, the 76ers would be a suitor for him, and maybe one day I'll make a video outlining everything, or all the teams I think could trade for Buddy Hield and all of the particular trade packages that they would be sending to the Kings for Buddy. There are certainly lots of teams that need shooting, and Buddy Hield does that as good as anyone else in the NBA. So in terms of trades, he is definitely the most likely person on this roster to be moved this offseason, and that 76ers fit could be outstanding. If they could get Josh Richardson for Buddy Hield, that would be very, very nice as a guy that can bring some really good defense to that backcourt, as De'Aaron Fox is a good defender, but Bogdanovic and Hield are both minus defenders. So if you're giving up a minus defender for a plus defender, it might just be a better fit. In free agency, their outgoing guys are Bogdanovic, Harry Giles, Alex Len, and Kent Bazemore. There's a few others that I didn't view as important. Their first target in this free agency period should be to bring back their two young guys they have outgoing, and that would be Bogdan Bogdanovic and Harry Giles. Bogdanovic is a really good shooter, guy who can score. Not the best defender, but he's not absolutely atrocious. He looks like a very good backcourt partner for De'Aaron Fox, and I think that they should really emphasize bringing him back. Something like 3 years, $30 to $36 million would make a lot of sense to me for Bogdanovic, and I'm not sure that he would fetch too much more than that. So they should be able to bring him back on that kind of contract. Harry Giles, they should try to bring him back if they can, but it would not surprise me if some team like the, Cavaliers or Hornets or Pistons or Knicks or Hawks, one of these young teams that has large amounts of cap space through him in an unrealistic contract that if you are the Kings, you would not want to match to bring him back. Other targets they could have would be bringing in some wing help. Like I said, they don't have much on that wing other than Harrison Barnes and Buddy Hield. And if Buddy is getting traded, obviously that's a area where you could use some more help. Bazemore was on this roster last year, and I think he played pretty well after he came over from I think it was the Trailblazers, traded him to the Kings. They could bring him back. They could sign someone like Justin Holiday. They could bring in someone like Tony Snell. They would have a few options as guys that could play that wing position for them. Also, I do think that they will end up drafting a wing, so that should be taken into consideration as well. This team is interesting to me because they have good young players in De'Aaron Fox and Marvin Bagley. But other than that, they just have a couple other guys that are getting up there in age, like guys like Bogdanovich, Harrison Barnes, and Buddy Hield. And it's going to be very, very interesting to see how they handle their situation and how they are able to build a contending core around Fox and Bagley. It starts with nailing their draft pick. I think that someone like Vassell or Bay would fit in very, very well alongside, or I guess in between, Fox and Bagley at either the 2 or the 3. And those are the 2 guys that I would very much like for them to draft. They have Rashawn Holmes as a solid center. And Bogdanovich and Hield are solid shooting guards if they are both on the roster next season, which seems unlikely, but it's possible. So this team does have a solid roster. And if they get hot for a stretch during the season next year, I don't think anyone would be surprised to see them as a playoff team. Obviously, as I say that, it would be surprising because we haven't seen the Kings in the playoffs in like 18 years or something crazy like that. But they do have a solid quality roster. Do I think they will make the playoffs next season? No, I do not. Do I necessarily think that's a bad thing? Not really, because another lottery pick will be coming in, and they'll have another asset to bolster their core with. This team looks to be on the up and up to me, and I think that they need to just play it smart and continue to build towards the future. We've seen so many rebuilds go south for this team. The most recent one being the DeMarcus Cousins centered rebuild. I really hope that they just are able to let the core of Fox, Bogdanovich, Bagley, and they ride it out with those guys, make additions through the draft in the next couple of years, and just continue to try to make the playoffs because this city needs some playoff basketball after this long drought that they've had. Let me know in the comments section what you thought of this video. I really do like the Kings, and I really like De'Aaron Fox especially, but I just don't see them as a playoff team next season. 2 years from now seems more realistic to me in that sense, but let me know what you think about my opinion there in the comments section. If you think they'll make the playoffs next year, let me know, and let me know what kind of moves they can make this offseason in order to make that playoff dream happen. Leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. Ladies and gentlemen, that's it for me. I will see you all again very soon.